Hello everybody, Big Plains here. Now before I dive too deep into this video, I want to give a shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. So thank you to everybody over on Patreon who helps to support the channel, and it really means a lot to me. It's one of the reasons why I'm actually able to build these planes. So thank you to all the people who support on Patreon, and I will leave a link in the description below if you want to go support over there for yourself. So I'm taking a bit of a break from the passenger plane models in Air Force One, which is done, and I've decided to do something a little bit different. This is the N9/MB. It's sort of a mouthful, but I will put a picture up on the screen right here for you so you can see what it looks like. And yes, it did actually exist. I know a lot of you are going, that didn't exist. Yes, it did exist. And contrary to what a lot of you might be thinking, this is not from the 90s or 80s like the B-2 is. The B-2 Spirit is from the late 70s, 80s. This is not from that time period. This is from a completely different time period. And this is what takes a lot of people by surprise. This is from the early 40s. So yeah, World War II, you can tell by its marking on the wings right there that this is not a modern aircraft. And this was actually constructed by the Northrop company, Jack Northrop in particular, to test the flying wing concept, because it was sort of new at the time, and it was sort of an idea where they just, it was basically just a wing at that point. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Now, note here, they were not the only people working on this. The Germans during World War II were also working on something very similar, the HO-229, with a jet-powered flying wing, a very similar size actually. But a lot of people were working on these things, and it was really, really sort of interesting to see how everybody went about it different ways. But the flying wing was found out as an incredibly efficient design, because as you can tell, most of it's gaining lift. Most of it, the aircraft is contributing to lift. But it had one major pitfall, and that was without the tail empennage, it was incredibly unstable and it was hard to fly. That was one of the things. And a lot of the later models also use split ailerons, but even with that, it wasn't really until fly-by-wire technology came along in the 80s that these things were finally able to actually be flown and were stable enough to be a bombing platform. Now, my model here does use some interesting techniques, I'll just say that for sure. I wanted to really try to get this thing as smooth as possible, to try to make it look like I don't even want this to look like Lego. I want it to look like a monogram model or something. And I think I actually did pretty good with that, if I can get this thing in frame. Sorry about that. I think I did pretty good with that. And what I ended up doing, I think I showed you guys this in a previous video, is that I used bricks on side construction for the inboard part. Then I used more bricks on side construction at a different angle for the leading edge. And you can see that that's how that turned out. And I actually think it looks pretty good. Again, there are some gaps, but most of it's pretty smooth actually. And this is the cockpit. Obviously, it can't fit a figure. It's just too darn small. And when we turn it around here, like this, it's a fairly easy to move model. You can see that it does have a little stilt here support. Something like this was on the real plane because it was tail heavy. I don't even know what you would say. This thing doesn't have a tail, so it's just rear heavy, I guess. And this one was prop driven. The German one, the 229, was jet powered. So this one was a little behind it in that regard. But this was a 1/3 scale model of the Northrop XB35, which was also prop driven. And I will be building that at some point, so spoiler alert there. But yeah, this was a 1/3 scale model, and this was prop driven. These right here, these are little flaps, so I was able to integrate these in pretty nicely. You can see they just function with a single hinge. There's not too much. There should be split ailerons right here, but I wasn't able to incorporate that just due to the size of this thing, because this thing is absolutely tiny. And you can see when it gets flipped over, let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. There we go. When it gets flipped over, like so, you can see I did try to do my best in terms of detailing here. Again, it was sort of challenging to get everything in there, but it does have retracting landing gear. We're going to see if we can get this to work here. This one, the nose gear is fairly simple, just like, whatever. These, I don't think this technically rotates like this, but mine does because that's all I can really do. And then this sort of just slides in there like that. and then closes on it like that. All right, well, after I finally was able to get that landing gear out of there, yeah, this is basically it. Now, it's very, very small, but this is one of those really fun aircraft that's just sort of, well, fun to put together over a span of a couple days here. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, all right, get on to Concorde, which is coming, yes, but I just thought this was a very, very neat little flying wings. So that's all I really have for this one. Do expect more flying wings later this year, because I just love the little flying wings, and they're not too space hungry. So that's all I really have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and that's it for this one. More to come on Concorde and 747 soon. So that's really it for this one. Bye for now.